I'm Heather Smith and welcome to Cloud Stories, a podcast exploring accounting tech. Today, I'm sharing with you a panel discussion on the topic using online advisory services to increase your revenue, which was part of the Accounting and Finance Show Asia 2021. Some of the areas the panellists and I explore include online advisory services currently offered, including sustainability advisory, which is something that people are really starting to talk about at the moment, how to get existing compliance clients to see the value in new advisory services, the impact the pandemic has had on advisory services, and the always popular question, how do you charge for advisory services? The session initially starts with an introduction from Laura Bynes, Project Director at Terrapinn. The conference organiser then hands over to me as the host. The conference is organised by Terrapinn, a global events company promoting innovation and technology. I encourage you to Google them and register for their upcoming events which may be of interest to you. As many of them are currently running virtually, you have the opportunity to attend all of their global events. I also encourage you to stay up to date with account tech and modern practice news by signing up to my newsletter at heathersmithau.com.
Hello and welcome to this next panel session in the Digital Practice channel. I'll be handing over shortly to our moderator for the discussion, Heather Smith from Anise Consulting. She will introduce you to our fantastic panellists shortly, and over the next 45 minutes or so, they'll be discussing the topic of using online advisory services to increase your revenue. Before I pass you over to Heather, I'd just like to remind you that if you have any questions during the session, please do submit them into the live discussion area on your screen. And during the session, we will be running a poll, so watch out for that one. And to respond to the poll, you can find the poll tab within the live discussion box on your screen. So without further ado, I'll now pass over to Heather and the panel to take it away.
Thank you so much, Laura. So yes, I'm Heather Smith and I'm the moderator for today's session. By attending this session, you'll learn how to launch advisory services, the benefits to your practice and the challenges you may face and how to address them. Towards the end of the session, we'll have time for Q&A and ask any questions you may have in the chat area. Now to start with, can I ask you to pop into the chat area where you're watching from while I let you know a little bit about me. I'm based in Brisbane, fellow of ACCA and CAANZ. I've run a digital practice for over a decade and my practice fits in my handbag and I can work from anywhere and my clients can be anywhere. I host a podcast called Cloud Stories that explores the digital ecosystem. So that's enough about me. I'd like to invite each of our panelists here today to introduce themselves. Can you please share with us who you are, where you're from and what your business looks like? I'll start with you, Henry.
Thank you, Heather. So exciting to this afternoon to see everyone. I'm the Group CEO and Chief Innovation Officer of Nexia TS, which is based in Singapore with 4 offices in China, Myanmar, and Malaysia and Singapore. And my job, besides being the CEO, I gave myself the word the Chief Innovation Officer to keep reminding myself that I have to innovate to make a difference in our accounting practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Who would like to go next?
I shall pick up, Heather, if that's okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Very difficult for me not to say good morning because I'm sitting in the UK at the moment at 8:02 on this fine morning. So I set up a firm called Farnell Clarke. We're based in a place called Norwich, which is about 120 miles northeast of London. I set my firm up in 2007 and we were possibly one of the first 100% cloud practices globally back in 2009. So we've been working around the cloud accounting ecosystem for a very long time now. We've learned lots of lessons along the way, some really positive, some not so. And I'm very fortunate that I'm able to share particularly the things that didn't work with other accounting firms now to help them not have to go through the same challenges that we did being early pioneers.
Thank you, Will. And to Willy.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Willy from Forbis Accounting. So We are a group of professional services company located in Singapore itself. We do have an office in Indonesia as well, where we just started earlier this year. Something about Forbis is that we are actually a social enterprise. So we focus a lot on advocating for equal opportunities, as well as to train and to place individuals who have special needs or people who, have certain requirements or, are at risk of unemployment. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So I'd like to ask anyone who would like to jump in and answer this, how do you define online advisory?
I can start that if you can. I think for me is how the customer or our client can interact with us, and if they can interact with us online, then I would call that an online advisory, because in our area of work, we find that there is something that we just cannot avoid but to also have offline discussion. So I would just define it as long as the first interaction is online, I would call it online. Thank you.
Thank
Heather,
you. Does anyone else? Yep.
Yeah, I'll go on this. I think it's a really interesting question, and I think even if you asked everybody to define advisory without adding an online element to it, you would get a different answer from everybody that you ask. For me, in terms of answering that definition broadly about advisory before we think about online advisory, my firm will be doing advisory services when every client we've got picks up the phone and asks every question they've got. And that kind of summarizes that advisory is about really great relationships. And I think what we have to recognize now, the world is changing. Whatever it is we're buying, however we engage with suppliers, so much of that now is online. So it's about making sure that we can use digital platforms to engage better with our clients to enable those advisory conversations, however they're delivered.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for that, Will. Any thoughts there, Willy?
Well, for us, we always we focus on getting achievable tasks to help the client to troubleshoot or pinpoint their pain points, right? So all these tasks, usually what we do is to digitalize it as much as possible so that, everyone can work remotely without really having to meet. Or if we were to meet, we'll be probably doing video conference, like something like what we're doing at the moment. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Now, can I ask Laura to launch our multiple choice questions? So we have a multiple choice poll, and the question of it is, what online advisory services do you see your firm offering over the next 5 years? And you can answer as many or as few offerings as you wish. So has that been launched?
It has, yes. It's
excellent.
Running in the background. We'll give people a moment to respond, and I'll share the answers shortly.
Fantastic, fantastic. And while that is running, I'll let you know that we have people joining us from Singapore, which is no surprise. We also have people joining us from Adelaide, Cairns and Dubai. That's fantastic. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the answers, the response to that poll. So please take a moment to respond to that. And while they are responding, I'd like to go around and ask each of our panelists, what online advisory services do you actually offer through your firm?
So I'll jump in there. App advisory is a big one for us. So alongside running my accountancy firm, I also founded a business called App Advisory Plus, and we are seeing huge uptake from SME businesses looking for ways to improve how they do business. So I think huge opportunities for accounting firms here. And if we cast our mind back to pre-2001, big four firms around, or big six firms as they were back then around the world, made significant money from technology consulting. And I think that we've seen the app ecosystem evolve to a point now where as accountants, we can deliver comparable ERP type solutions with apps for a fraction of the cost. So massive opportunities there. So that's a big one for us, Heather.
Yeah, I love that. I love that what you're doing with app advisory so much, and it's really something for other people to try and emulate. Would anyone else like to jump in there and
Maybe
talk
I
about
just jumped in that. Yeah.
Excellent.
So beside, I think for us, as I mentioned earlier, that is the interaction point, and we often find that the online interaction only get us starting, and quite often, for example, if there is a tax advice, then we need to still go into more details, and then that sort of go onto a separate platform. But we do have a Ascent platform that is just put into packages, so you can have simple online advice on, say, accounting, payroll, and the typical of the kind of services. But I think when it comes to more specialized services, then we still do have more direct interaction.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Henry. And anything that you'd like to contribute there, Willy? What online advisory services are you offering?
I think because of the pandemic, we have been focusing quite a lot on HR type of advisory, where we provide a job redesign. So for firms that are very traditional based, how can they redesign their workflow such that the employees can work safely from home? So that has been something quite big for us. We have also been doing a lot of governance. So for charities, non-profits, social enterprise, how should we, restructure our organization? How should we take care of meet the rules and stuff like that?
That's really fascinating. Thank you for that, Willy. Now I will I'll just talk briefly to the results of that poll. And so let me just read it out. 8%. So the question was, what online advisory services do you see firms offering over the next 5 years? Do you see your firm offering over the next 5 years? 8% app advisory, 7% budget creation, 11% cash flow forecasting, 13% cash flow management and that debt reduction piece, 9% coaching and strategic planning, 5% franchise reporting, 2% niching, 5% not-for-profit advisory, 13% ongoing accounting and assistance, 7% raising capital or borrowed money, 7% sustainability advisory, and 13% virtual CFO. So what do you think? To me, the numbers there seem quite low. I'm surprised at how low they are, because I presume they could go to 100% and only 8% potentially are considering app advisory.
Interesting. I think it's an awareness, Heather, of the opportunity. If we look at app advisory, you've got to be doing the cloud accounting piece, and even in the UK, which is possibly slightly ahead of the Asian market and behind the Australian market, we're still at only 20% adoption in the UK. And then when you look at that adoption, that's really people that are understanding the core general ledger piece, not necessarily the input and output pieces that are the obvious attachments to that. So I think it's still, particularly around app advisory, it's still an awareness of what's possible.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of opportunity, and kudos to everyone who has joined this session, because there's obviously a lot of opportunity out there, and potentially not much competition over the next 5 years if you do get involved. So I'd like to ask everyone, how do you get existing compliance clients to see the value in advisory services? How do you get them to see the value in actually paying for and engaging you for advisory services?
Maybe I can start because we do have, for example, the audit services. Quite a lot of our clients are in audit services, and for which we would look at that as compliance. But often our auditors, when they look at the companies, there could be situations where we notice maybe some issues with cash flow. Then we start to suggest certain things, that maybe a diagnostic cash flow advisory as a start. There are also more and more discussion on sustainability, climate change, And a lot of companies at the moment perhaps are just saying that, okay, these are just for the people who are interested in green and environment and nothing to do with us. But actually, we all know that sustainability is a key word, and every country, I mean, even UN are meeting now, and the two main topic is pandemic and sustainability and climate change. So it can't be that, UN are talking about something that's not important. So I think for advisory part, where we come in from a compliance and change it to advisory is then we say, have you considered what would climate change affect your business model? And we have some kind of compliance checklist for them to tick off. And that prompts them to sort of lead on to say, okay, I might need some advisory on how to reduce carbon emission or different models and all this. So these are just some of the ways we have been trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's very, very interesting. Very interesting. Thank you, Henry.
I think for me, Heather, it's we have to get closer to our clients, and we have to think about ways that enable us to get closer to our clients to build better relationships. And in doing so, we build better understanding of the challenges that our clients are facing. So people that have heard me speak before know that I'm a very big advocate of things like daily bookkeeping, because it gets us closer to our customers. The technology that is available to us means we can deliver that so efficiently and so effectively for the client. And in doing so, we get the opportunity to engage in weekly conversations with our clients. And it's really simple. The more we talk to our clients, the more likely we're going to be at front of mind when they have that question that I mentioned in my definition of advisory, that they're going to pick the phone up and say, hey, well, we really need some help with this. That gives us the opportunity to turn that into revenue. Most firms are doing that. They just don't charge for it. And they get a call and they answer the client's problem and add massive value and don't generate the revenue that they should from that.
Yeah, I constantly see that, hear that, see it happening, that the accountant doesn't realize what they gave away was actually the really high value part of it, just as you said there, Will.
I really agree with Will in the sense that, you really need to talk to clients. We always encourage our associates to talk to the clients. It could be a short video call. It could be a couple of messages on WhatsApp, and this really help us to discover what are the pain points or what are the objectives of the clients. So it doesn't have to have, the call doesn't need to be, having an objective to say that I must make a sale, I must sell a package, but it's really understanding what they are doing or what they're hoping to achieve. And through all this talking and listening to the client, sometimes you can realize that there are simple things of which we can help them work on, which will really help improve their business. So I think just last year, for example, a beauty chain, they had problem with task management. So what we did is that we said, you can take up, there are a lot of free softwares of which you can use to help manage your business and everything. And that's where the CEO told us, he said, I don't know what software is good, which is why we are not using any software. And so the client proposed that, why don't I give you $5,000? You do up a list of softwares that I can use, and you advise me which is, the best software for my company, which to us, that is quite a good sum of money, right? And, the client actually they get to increase their productivity. So to them, that $5,000 is not a lot. The value is actually there. Yeah.
Excellent. Exploring what they need and being able to deliver it. That's fantastic. Thank you for that, Willy. So I'm interested to know if the pandemic triggered any additional advisory services. So I know that Willy has talked to, they offered HR advisory services. And I believe Henry was saying that part of the pandemic actually triggered some of the sustainability advisory. So I'm wondering if there's anything more that happened around that.
I think at a really top level, the thing that I noticed with a lot of the firms that I work with, not only in the UK but around the world, is that it drove firms to engage more with their clients. So certainly in the UK, every couple of weeks the government came out and gave an update, talked about new support available for businesses, and it gave accountants something to talk to their clients about. So perhaps for many, for the first time ever, they were talking to their clients every 2 weeks, whether it be a webinar or an email campaign. And firms were saying to me, our clients really like us at the moment. There's so much client goodwill at the moment. And I kind of said, well, why do you think that is? Well, I think it must just be that we're talking to them regularly. And I think that's the key. So my question to those firms is, well, when the government stops giving you something to talk to your clients about every 2 weeks, what are you going to do to make sure that you continue to talk to them every 2 weeks? So there was naturally, we had to do furlough payments in the UK and things, lots of funding, cash flow projections and things were the obvious things that we started to do. But I think it's really important that firms look at what the pandemic caused them to do differently and think really hard about how they continue to do that stuff post-pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very interesting. Thank you for that, Will. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to contribute there?
Maybe I just add to that. I absolutely agree with Will that, meeting the client and knowing that needs is key, because nowadays, typically, especially clients from Singapore, in fact, I just finished a meeting and the first question they have is that, is this pandemic going to be an endemic situation? That means you just learn to live with that. And what does that mean for my business? And I actually use the fact that it's sustainability that you should be looking at. I mean, it's not about being green, but how can you ensure that your business continue? And then you have to start doing you need to prepare on a 3P basis, preparing mentally, preparing strategically, and preparing sustainably. And once I get that conversation with the 3Ps, actually there's a lot of things that we can talk to. But of course, I think I also noticed there are some questions about, how do you get your client to pay for those kind of advice? Because they love to hear me when I share it with them when it's free. And we need to make sure that somehow they can pay. That's then the lead on to say, okay, maybe I can get my guys to talk to you on this area of strategic planning, for example, or talk to you this area of sustainability and so on and so on. Yeah, it's really hard sometimes to get client to pay. I understand that.
Yeah, no, well, and to that question, so I was going to sort of ask you about how do you figure out what to charge? So let's go to that question and then I'll follow on with that question. How do you figure out what to charge for your online advisory? Are you using any pricing models there? And we have had a sort of a relevant question from the audience. What techniques do you recommend to use when the client refuses the charge them, when they're having the situation that clients are receiving the advice, we think we should charge them, but we give it for free due to many considerations, such as we're afraid of losing them as clients?
I think we're kind of guilty often of almost training our clients to expect stuff for free, and it's kind of things that we've done historical when we make that decision to just do something for free. We set an expectation with the client that they pay for their compliance and everything else is included. And certainly when I set my firm up, I was really guilty of trying to fix a fee, but fix it at a level where I just couldn't upsell anything. And I kind of shot myself in the foot by saying to clients, hey, 95% of everything you're ever going to need is included in your monthly fee. That's not a good strategy. And I learned that very quickly. I think if we think about the way that the advisory questions are going to start and somebody calls and says, hey, well, I've got this problem, can you help? We can do one of three things. Either we can solve it then and there on the spot. And if we can do that, then there's an argument that, well, actually, we've helped the client and we don't need to charge if it's a 5-minute phone call. The second option is that it's something much deeper and it needs us to go away and research. And at that point, we need to be confident saying to a client, we can help with that. Absolutely. What we'll do is we'll go away, we'll send you over a proposal for you to approve, and then we'll get cracking on the work. It's really, really easy. I mean, okay, we've still got to work out what the charge is. And the third option is it's something we can't do, but we know somebody that can help. So in that case, we can say to the client, we can't do that, but we know some great people that we work with. So we should be able to kind of deliver the outcome that the client wants in every one of those cases. And in terms of pricing, clearly think about the output that you're delivering. What is the value of that output that you're delivering? You have two options: you charge on the output or you charge on the time. And for me and my firm, if we have to charge on time, we want to give the client a real expectation of what that cost is going to be. We try and fix it where we can. And if there's uncertainties that we don't know about, we engage with the client, we talk to them about it and make sure they're aware so that nobody gets surprise bills at the end of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's really key, not to surprise them at the end of it, and to use potentially, I know some of the sponsors as Practice Ignition use an onboarding tool like that bills them up front before they, when they're agreeing to that proposal.
Absolutely.
Do you have any thoughts about that, Willy or Henry?
Yeah. For us, we use a freemium model, something like the games that you do. So what happens is that, if there's any basic type of advice that is coming from us, we give it out for free. I do that very often on Facebook, on LinkedIn. You text me something, I will give you a very basic type of advice. I might give you links of where you can read up for more in-depth advice. But, if you want us to work on it, to utilize our expertise, right? We need to give you that level of confidence, that level of service. That's where we start to charge. We tend to look at the objectives of which we are going forward with. So let's say if it's a very long project, if there are many complex objectives, we tend to use a cost plus or a performance type of charging model. But if it's simple kind of objective, a very short project, you're just trying to, let's say, guess or trying to do an estimate of the taxes that are coming in. With the current COVID restrictions, we have foreigners or foreign directors who are trying to come back into Singapore. They're just trying to find out about the quarantine, getting the entry approvals, getting everything aligned. These kind of very simple kind of things. Then that's where we said, okay, this is our hourly rate. We estimate that, how much time will be needed from our experts to get everything done for you. And this is how much you should be expecting. Yeah. So, and that has worked quite well with most clients.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Willy. And Henry, do you have any thoughts there?
Maybe I'll just add the fact that I think at the end there is no one model or one strategy because different clients are different. So, for example, we have clients who just love to keep asking questions almost every other day. And what we do is that we then say, look, I have a retainer basis, so that means just pay X dollar a month or a quarter, and you can just ask questions as you like and within X number of hours. So that serves quite well for this kind of client. And there will be those other clients who are quite prepared to pay if they want an outcome delivered. And then we can go on, I think, what Willy suggested about time-based and so on and come on. But I think at the end, we must be able to demonstrate value. And at the same time, we must also remember that if we start charging for every single advice, then it can turn around and say that basically you're not adding value to me. So we still have to demonstrate the adding of value at the same time at the appropriate time to go on a charging basis. And usually I do it as on the basis that I say that this is an area that I'm not an expert in. I need to get my expert in. So it's quite clear that when the expert comes in, and that's when, the clock starts ticking, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have sort of a number of different options there. So hopefully that gives people listening in those different pricing models. I know someone once told me a tip, which was if you spent years learning a particular topic and someone rings you up and you could answer them in 10 seconds, don't answer them in 10 seconds. Tell them that you'll email them in an hour's time with a response and bill them for it because you spent a long time learning that. So it's just sort of pulling back and putting that in a context that you are getting paid for it because it's actually valuable for them. So please keep the questions coming in. And I do have another question for you all. How do you attract new clients to advisory services, and how do you pre-screen them to ensure that they're suitable?
Good question. So I think attracting clients is about having a clear message. I often tell people that I work with and when I speak that it's really easy to grow an accounting firm. It's much harder to scale an accounting firm. So as long as we have a strong message and we communicate it effectively, you will attract clients. The second part of the question is really important. How do we screen them? I believe that as accountants, we have to own the process and we have to be prepared to dictate a process to the client, because if we don't control the process, we can't control the profitability of what we do. So part of that, certainly in our firm, is we put our clients through what we call our welcome team. So that's 3 months that they work with a dedicated team who are responsible for making sure they know the process and that we can educate them on our process. It's a bit like if you go and see a doctor and they prescribe some medication for you. We don't challenge it. We don't say, well, I think I prefer this one. We trust them. We take their advice, and our clients will do the same. And if we don't have a standardized process, we can't win on fixed fees. If we want to fix fees and give clients certainty of what they pay, we have to be able to control how we deliver the work and not let the clients dictate it. And for so long, accounting firms have let clients dictate how they work.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that gold there, Will. Any other thoughts there about how you're attracting new clients and how you're pre-screening clients for advisory?
At my firm, a lot of us actually volunteer our time and services to the higher learning institutes as well as charities. I think that has helped put out our brand quite a lot. We've participated in webinars, video conferences like this with professional bodies, with private firms. That really put out the branding. We do get people who will contact us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, asking about certain topics that we've talked about. For further advice. When they realize it's complicated, they will start asking you, how much do you charge? That is one that really helped us. But a lot of our clients actually come from referrals. So our existing clients, we also work with about a dozen other consulting advisory firms who come to us and said, we have a project, we don't have enough manpower, or we don't have the right subject matter of expertise. Are you able to come in to co-consult with us or to join tender with us? And that's something that, has really helped to increase our revenue.
It sounds like you work in quite a niche area, Willy, that you're able to do that.
I guess we do have quite a few niche areas, but I think ultimately it's about being open to connecting with other people and other professionals. I think most professionals don't mind working together, especially if, you are able to carry your own weight. So it's about really going out there and talking, connecting with people and seeing, what we can help, how we can help each other at different points in time. Yeah.
Absolutely. And any further thoughts on that, Henry?
I think I agree both with Will and Willy, and I think the other part that we cannot forget is our existing clients are actually the most important, because if we serve them well, they will be introducing new clients or even give us new work. And I always believe that once we serve a happy client, your clients will just come quite automatically. And of course, happy client means that we need to have staff that are happy to and be nice. So I suppose I always say, be nice people. And I think nice people attracts nice people, nice clients, and nice clients attract more nice clients just to be nice. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it helps to educate your clients about the type of clients that you're looking forward for, because sometimes they'll send you an email and they go, can you work with this client? He's a bit angry all the time, but I'm sure you'll be able to sort him out. And you're like, I don't want an angry client. So it's educating them as well. Who is the ideal client to join you? Yeah. So I'm really interested, and I'm sure our audience is interested to know, what does an advisory meeting look like, feel like? What does that relationship look like, feel like? We have sort of touched on this, but I'm really keen to know, what does that look like? I'll let anyone jump in for that one.
Okay, I try first because we always have the right answer, so I should try the simple answer. For me, I think the meeting should be one where we go in as partners. That means we don't treat the person opposite of the table or at the other side of the table as a client, but as partners, and go in with the perspective that I'm here to listen to you. I'm here to help to think through some of these issues, and I don't have all the answers, but my aim is that I'm intending to help you to grow and help you to solve some of these problems and think together. And that's what we believe. And because once you have that attitude, it shows your humbleness as well, and you also show that there is something that we need to jointly work, because then we own the problem together, rather than, because there's always some problem when, let's say I'm an advisor and I go in and I start selling myself. I can do this, I can do that, I could, and quite often we may not be able to deliver some of the part, because not purely in a sense our problem, but because there are certain issues that we have not yet seen and it was not disclosed or something. So, but if we see that, yeah, we are going to work through this together, I think I might be able to add some value to you, and let's work together. I mean, that's how I find my relationship, and that will work.
Thank you for that, Henry.
For me, I think that it's about not viewing them as advisory meetings. It's an extension of the relationship that we have. I mean, okay, there will be times when you've got a very specific requirement. Somebody's come in and said, right, okay, I need if it's let's take App Advisory. Somebody said, yeah, I need a system, and this is what we do. There's elements that have got to be structured to that, in terms of you've got to do the fact find, you've got to do the scoping, you've got to do the evaluation, and so on. But the engagement with the client is just an extension of the relationship that we already have. And I think sometimes thinking about framing it as an advisory meeting is not going to get the kind of outcomes that you want. It's about having an opportunity to have a conversation with a client, understand what their pain points are, what their challenges are, and that should be stuff that we're just doing as normal day-to-day business with the clients that we work with.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Will. And Willy, any thoughts there?
For us, it's really about walking with the client. So we tend to walk beside the client. We remind ourselves that we're acting as advisors. So what that means is that we give our advice, we give ideas based on what we think is the best for that situation. But ultimately, the client will have to make the final decision, even if it's not what we believe is the ideal choice, right? And then we try and work based on the kind of decision that they have made to make the best of the whole situation itself. So sometimes, the client tends to move off objectives. They might try to introduce new objectives, and we try to work on that. We let them know to say that, if you're going to introduce this new objective, it might cause the project to be delayed. Are you okay with it? Or it might blow up your costs. Do you have that kind of budget ready for such situations, right? And so it already opens up to a lot of talking, and sometimes you also get to understand further, like why the sudden change, or why the client is going against your advice, or going for a lesser option, or an alternative itself.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Willy. Now I will ask a question from one of our attendees, and this will probably go to you, Henry. So how well versed are accounting professionals in sustainability advisory, and could such advisory services be provided online?
That's a very good question, because as accountant, I think we do not have all the answers for sustainability advisory, especially related to climate change. Because, for example, when it comes to climate change, we have to start doing things like quantifying the carbon emission and so on, and that, or even if the client are able to provide that, then someone from outside needs to sort of verify that. So typically from an accounting profession, I think our expertise comes in the area of actually risk management, because quite a lot of people do not see sustainability as risk management, but actually it's highly related. Because if our business is not sustainable, our practices, our business model is not sustainable or is not helpful to climate, actually our business sustainability or going concern is called to question. So it is about risk management, and then that's how you then link into the sustainability. Now, when it comes to specific areas, that how do we do a particular area to make sure that the model is sustainable, that we can need to bring in expertise like what Will suggested. We definitely, as pure accountants, we cannot have all the things, but we start from the risk management point of view. On the part on providing online, I think, as I said earlier about online advisory, I don't believe in fully online advisory. I mean, there are certain things that can be online throughout the time, but something like sustainability, it may mean that the initial part may be a checklist where there's some self-help checklist that the client can use. That can be an online service, but then go into more detail and then you identify from the checklist that there are some gaps that we need to address. Then you have to do more interaction. I mean, either Zoom or even face-to-face. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Henry. And I will just add to that people have told me that accounting firms have gone for the B Corp certification, which is a certification in sustainability, and that was so thorough that after doing it, they felt that they could offer the sustainability advisory. So that, for the person who asked that question, that might be something to further explore as well. So we are running towards the end of this session. I'd like to jump ahead and ask the question, how do you empower your team to deliver advisory? How do you empower your team? How do you train them in that?
I think a really interesting point up from the pandemic is in my firm, for the first time ever, members of the team were exposed to advisory conversations. And when I talk about advisory conversations, I mean clients were asking them questions that weren't about their VAT return. It wasn't about their end of year accounts. So all of a sudden it raised the bar of awareness that actually clients need more help than just getting their tax returns filed. And I think that was really eye-opening, because I think it's really difficult. It was really difficult in normal circumstances to get the team to think beyond what they saw as their day job in terms of doing the bookkeeping, doing the returns, doing the accounts. But it just opened their eyes to the position they hold as accounting professionals and the broader understanding they had when they were asked these questions. So I think exposing your team to clients is the first step, helping them understand that clients do want more from us. I was at a conference in the UK yesterday, and I was on a panel that was looking at what the clients really want. And we ran a video from some clients giving feedback on their accountants, and it was fascinating. It just blew out all the things that we think clients want. We're really guilty of delivering what we think clients want rather than what they really want.
Absolutely. We're all very jealous that you got to go to a real conference, in-person conference. Does anyone else have anything to add to how they empower their team to deliver advisory services?
Just let me add a little. For us, it's really about work-life balance and focusing on the interests as well as the passion or the concern of the individual employees, right? So when they come in, we always ask them, like, what are you interested in? It could be games, it could be education, it could be like sustainability. They are maybe very concerned about getting eco-friendly products. So start from your area of interest. The company provides a work-life balance, 40 hours a week. Once you're up to 40 hours, you stop your work, go and do your passion, go and pursue passion. We subsidize training. So if you think that, I'm interested in forensic accounting, go for the course. Even if it's not related to what you are currently doing in our company, go for the course. We'll subsidize you. We give you your examination leaves up to 5 a year. They can go and pursue such knowledge. From there, then we say that, they build up knowledge that are close to or a junction to what they are doing. And this often helps them in advisory projects to become subject matter of experts in these fields because they are naturally interested or, they're naturally inclined towards those topics in the first place.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that, Willy. Anything to add there, Henry?
Maybe just on the part about them having to learn from their other more experienced colleague, because I think at the end, very often you pick up the skills, the softer skills of providing advisory from watching your fellow colleagues. So we always encourage that the more senior people bring along their juniors, even though that perhaps, he's just there almost like taking notes. But actually, there's a lot of intangible things that this person can pick up because it's nothing beats that like learning from the master, right? Like following Heather, following Will, following Willy. I think we learn a lot, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And when we work remotely, that can be a bit of a challenge. So we're coming towards the end of the session today, and I could go on for a lot longer, but I'm not allowed to. So what I'd like to do is ask each of you to share one practical tip you wish you'd known at the start of your advisory journey, and also let people attending know how they can get in contact with you. If each of you could take 90 seconds, that'd be sensational.
Okay, so I'll go first. I think for me, the big lesson was on pricing. So the one thing that I got fundamentally wrong in my business was not charging for the value that we deliver. It's fine doing fixed fees. Fixed fees are great, but identify where you're adding additional value over and above what's included in your fee. So look at tools like Practice Ignition to make sure you manage scope. I think that's fundamentally was our biggest downfall. Is letting the scope creep and doing work that we weren't being remunerated for. So it's been a pleasure once again to join a panel with you, Heather, Willy and Henry. And if people want to get in touch with me, willfarnell.com, or indeed you'll find me on LinkedIn, Will Farnell. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Will.
Okay, I've placed my LinkedIn address on the live chat discussion, so anyone who wants to connect can connect from there. For me, basically, I think don't be afraid to ask questions, so that can help you understand your client a lot more. And the most important question: are you willing to pay for this advice? That really will help. Most clients will not get offended at that, and at least upfront whether how much effort are you going to have to put into this thing altogether. And to close off, it was nice talking to all of you, and thank you for inviting me to the panel.
Thank you very much, Willy. And finally, to bring it home, Henry.
Thanks, Heather. I really enjoyed this discussion. For us, we learned one part is that the mindset change, because initially we thought, okay, we are very much a compliance-based business. To stretch to advisory is quite difficult. But had we known that, it just requires a bit of mindset change, a bit of taking a small step at a time and believing that nothing is impossible for us to try. I mean, at most, you won't get paid for your advisory. That's the worst that can happen, but we should start. And once we make that start, we just realize that, clients are prepared if you can solve or jointly work on their issues, and they are prepared to pay. Absolutely. To get in touch with me, you can look for Henry Tan at nexiaTS.com.fg.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Henry. And I'd like to thank all of our guest panelists today, Will Farnell, Willy Tan, Henry Tan, and everyone at the Accounting and Finance Show Asia 2021. Special mention to Laura Bynes and Laura Pickard, who've assisted in the development and production of this conference. I'd also like to encourage everyone to connect with my fellow speakers and I in the Conference Hub and on LinkedIn, and let us know where you are on your advisory journey. Thank you very much for attending the webinar presented by Accounting and Finance Show Asia 2021. Today's topic was using online advisory to increase your revenue. I'm Heather Smith and I've been your moderator for today's session.
Brilliant, Heather. Thank you so much. I don't think I can wrap up any better than that. So I will simply say we will see you back at the next session in a few minutes' time.
I hope you enjoyed listening to that discussion on using online advisory services to increase your revenue from the Accounting and Finance Show Asia 2021. Some of the highlights of the session included how the pandemic drove firms to engage with their clients. It gave accountants something to talk to their clients about on a regular basis. And when the government stops giving you something to regularly talk to your clients about, what are you going to do to make sure you continue talking with them? We mentioned the 3 Ps: prepare mentally, prepare strategically, and prepare sustainably. We talked about a freemium advisory content model, sharing the basic advice and useful links on social media for free, and then for the more in-depth advisory needs, charging the client. We talked about how some of the panellists volunteered their services to charity, and this improved their branding and increased referrals back to their business. We talked about how advisory is an extension of the relationship with the client, and some accountants don't realise the conversations they are having and not charging for are actually the high-value advisory conversations. You've been listening to Cloud Stories podcast. I encourage you to subscribe, leave a 5-star review so other people can find this podcast. Stay up to date with the curated content I'm sharing by signing up to the Accountech newsletter available at heathersmithau.com.